Hi, you guys. I'm Meg Craddock, and you might know me from a couple of places. I am an OD graduate, and I've written chapters both generally on makerspaces and on machine learning in particular. You might also read my column in School Library Connections, or an article or two in School Library Journal. Or you might know that I was the 2019 Virginia Librarian of the Year and a Darden Fellow. This picture of the Darden reception right here is hilarious because what you can't see is that I'm wearing a pair of 3-inch platform heels and I am still the shortest person in that picture. Anyway, Dr. Burns asked me to stop by and talk a little bit about space in libraries. And I laughed a little to myself because this is what my space currently looks like. Anybody else's space look like this? Right. This kind of space doesn't mean, though, that we can't be effective or engaging, and it doesn't restrict our reach. In some way, it even expands what we can do. Because making is not a space. It's not a laser cutter or a 3D printer or even a hot glue gun. It's not cardboard. It is a way of teaching and thinking about our world and the power we have to change it. Making's a pedagogy. Even these days, when there is no such thing as space, we are continuing to make knowledge, and that's what it is. Speaking of making knowledge, this is an example of doing so through the computer. This is an ArcGIS map, and you can look for my column about it actually in School Library Connection next month. This is a field trip, and each location, and you can see the locations here, these little things, each location is connected to a 360 photo so that the students can walk through each of the historic sites. We are currently in a renaming process for our school, and we are digging deep into our own local history, and we're going to start here with a field trip. Even traditional library things are a bit freed up because we're online. We don't have to worry about traffic, sports schedules, even snacks are not things to worry about right now. My summer book groups are still going strong into the fall because some of the barriers that used to muck up our flow are just gone. And the social emotional support that libraries facilitate are more important than ever. We, as librarians, are more important than ever. As we return to school, something we may keep in mind is that some things are going to change. Other things are going to stay the same. But keep in mind that given the time, the space, and the tools, kids can make some amazing things. This is just a Chalk Talk table that was in my library. When you hear the word makerspace, you probably picture something like this, but it is not always. In fact, library learning commons can look very different. Makerspaces have been all over professional journals and conferences for a while now. For school libraries, it began with reallocating floor space to support instructional pedagogy that teaches research in a real, relevant, and engaging way. I haven't had an office in about 10 years. Cleaning out and repurposing some rooms from old Life magazines and VHS tapes has changed the way that we think about how students use the library and for what purpose. Singular study has been a cultural norm, but collaborative spaces are more and more popular. And while I understand that the word makerspace has evolved into a meaning, when we say that word, we have a picture that's a little bit like what was on the previous slide. And I kind of prefer the term learning commons because that's mostly what I see is learning in common. So what differentiates makerspace from learning commons is really ownership and agency. Having a makerspace contains making into predictable, adult-controlled time, activity, and place. A learning commons allows for student-directed exploration, research, play, social learning, cross-curricular, multi-age collaboration. The ownership of the space and of the learning has transferred from teacher to student, making a traditional librarianship can peacefully coexist. Here, you're looking at one of our student-run help desks doing repairs. That does not mean that the books, the reading, the teaching doesn't exist here. They coexist. The library is the intersection of ideas and information, and neither is more important than the other. When we talk about space, sometimes libraries don't always look like libraries. This is what my library looked like on day one, so about 2 months ago. You might notice that there are actually no books in this library. I am currently in the process of building from scratch, which is both awesome and terrifying. Yes, those cabinets were filled with trash. It is honestly great because I don't have to weed. There's no weeding. Like, you can't weed nothing. And I can have a diverse, representative collection from the jump. My collection age is amazing, right? It's great. It is, however, difficult to transform a space from this into something that students will actually use. And I think my most important priority right now is being flexible. I'm honestly ignoring this space for now because there are about 5 students in the building. Evolving according to need is probably one of the most important things we can do as librarians. Librarianship, you've probably noticed, is like design, and that it is an iterative process. Like, we try something, we evaluate how it works, we come back, we change. That iteration is really important. And change is okay and fine. Here is my path in the last few months. So this crazy kitchen, workroom, closet, I don't even know what to call this, has evolved into this, right? So this is my first iteration when I thought kids were coming back to the building. So I had super tidy shelves. I cataloged my face off. You know, I feel like you guys might be the only ones who will appreciate the quality of the tape job on those shelves because it is amazing. But then we got word that there will actually be no students in the building and they can only make appointments for pickups. So my next iteration looks like this. So we're doing this. All of the books came out into the hall so that students who put books on hold can just pick up from the pickup shelf, or they can choose and browse during their appointment time. I'm distributing VR kits during their appointment times as well. They made Google tours, and they needed the VR kits so that they could see them because we don't want to create an equity issue with students who have devices versus don't. I am taking my show on the road. Now that we're online, the fact that these 2 children go to school in schools that are an hour apart doesn't really matter anymore. They can be in the same book group, which is great, right? Now that we're online, the fact that schools are separated physically has no bearing on whether or not we can have groups and clubs and all of that fun stuff. It's just being flexible. It is good to get comfortable with change and to keep in mind that our mission to promote reading and learning. It is not a job where we dust books for a living, right? Of anyone in the building, we teach every subject, we work with every child, and we are usually the first to introduce new technology and pedagogy to our staff. And that is an amazing role and so much fun. No matter what, this job is never boring.